welcome everyone. For those who have already connected, thank you for joining. We would like to get a little bit more into the details of what standardization means for an association like Euralarm. Hopefully, this will be interesting for you. Hopefully, this will trigger some curiosity. If you like, a genuine interest in learning more about what we do. And if that is the case, and I really hope that will be, the doors of the association are open for you to understand more about what we do. Okay, so with that, I would like to hand it over to our professional team. So Martin, who's the next speaker?
Thank you, Peter. With us is Benoît Stockenbroeckx, who is one of the members of the Euralarm professional team and involved in the work of the security and the services section. And also with us is Feijoo Jimenez, chair of the security section, who will share his expertise and his experience with standardization, focus on secure perimeter security, a topic that relates to what you just presented, Peter. I will click forward, Benoît, and give you the floor.
For you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin, for the introduction. So my name is Benoît Stockenbroeckx. I'm technical manager for Euralarm. I'm located and based in Belgium. And as the topic today is standardization, I can give you some idea of what I'm doing within standardization. So I'm involved in several technical committees dealing with products, with services, standards, and also I'm chair of IEC TC79, which is an international technical committee for security systems. So to introduce the topic, sometimes standardization is perceived as a certain nebulous with a lot of document numbers, with a lot of acronyms, probably hundreds of acronyms, a very specific vocabulary, with the processes that are very complex and difficult to capture. And the idea of my presentation today is to give you a more intuitive perception of what standardization means, what is the added value, and why so many documents are being written, and how interesting it can be to be part of the journey. So next slide, please. And I will start with what are standards made for. There are different reasons for developing standards. The first I highlight here is to allow for compatibility. So you all know the sizes of the papers that are used, maybe less and less used today, from A1 to AX, and the paper A4 is a very well-known format for a paper, and that allows for just for compatibility to have a hard file folder that is of the appropriate size for putting the papers. Printing machines, photocopiers, all those need to be compatible regarding the size of the paper. If we go more to technology now, you all know the Bluetooth communication protocol and devices from very various manufacturers. They are using that protocol and they are understanding each other. So it's also an example where standardization plays an important role to ensure that when you buy a device, you will be able to communicate with other devices via that Bluetooth communication protocol. If we come closer to the sector of Euralarm and security, another example is OSDP. OSDP is a compatibility protocol in order to allow for different devices of access control systems to talk to each other, to communicate. And by defining that protocol, that it is just a standard that defines the protocol and allows for that compatibility. Next point, please. Another role of standards can be to set the bar for product safety. So today, many products are electrical products. They can be connected to the mains to 230 volts, or being using lithium batteries that can be recharged, and we know how it can be dangerous if the battery is not properly designed. And there are standards that exactly allow for verifying the safety of the product, just to allow that you will not get an electrical shock when you use normally the product, when you have a first default on the product, that there will be no overheating of any part of the product that you can touch, or to avoid also ignition of fire by the product itself, because we know that electrical energy can produce heat and go until ignition of fire. So there are standards, and there are many standards that allow for testing the products to avoid all those problems. Next point, please. Another role is describe the state of the art. So state of the art is, let's say, almost a common role for all the standards. Any standards, any document define the state of the art. But some are really describing the state of the art for delivering certain services, for example. If you take the example there, the 17065, it's a standard that defines or how a certification body should be organized in order to deliver qualitative services to their customers. That's described in a document that is very generic, that can be applied to any sectors for certifying of products. Another example, 27002, this is about information security controls, so cybersecurity of IT systems. So it is also describing the state of the art of how an organization should be organized in order to minimize the risk of cyber attacks. Next point. Set the bar for products, system, and services performances. So that's a different role. And here we are very close. We are really touching where Euralarm is strongly involved in standardization. When you buy a smoke alarm devices to protect your house, or when you buy a fire detection system to protect offices or to protect a factory, or if you buy an intrusion detection system, you expect that the product you are purchasing will be reliable, that it will produce the alarm when needed. And there are standards describing what is the state of the art for the performance of those systems, but also for the performance of the service company that will make the design of the system, that will assess the risk, and that will then install and maintain the proper system inside a building. So there are many standards dealing with the performances of products, system, and services. Next point. Allow for conformity assessment against legislations. That's a very particular use of standards. There are many European legislations, and certainly on products, in order to allow for free circulation of the goods within the European Union. The regulations and the directives from the European Commission provides very high-level essential requirements. In order to check that those essential requirements are satisfied and that the products are compliant with those essential requirements, the manufacturers need technical requirements. And some standards that are generally called harmonized standards are providing the technical requirements in order to satisfy the essential requirements of a certain legislations. And also within Euralarm, we are dealing with those standards and participating to the development of such standards. Next point, please. Then what are the different types of standards? After having seen what are the different roles of the standards, there are different types of standards. First, a European standard. What is that? A European standard is a technical document that has been produced at European level. It could be at CEN, CENELEC, or ETSI, and that will provide requirements on something. It can be a service, can be a system, can be a product. And all the countries that are part of the European Standardization Organization, so mainly all the European countries, even beyond the European Union, it's broader than the European Union, they all accept that European standards will replace the possibly existing national standards. So any conflicting national standards are not allowed as soon as a European standard is covering a certain topic. So all the national ones have to be withdrawn. All those that are covering the same topic have to be withdrawn, and the European standard is taking the place. Next point, please. European technical specifications. Those are also technical documents, but those are technical documents that can be prepared for two possible different reasons. The first one is it's a trial. So it's a trial to lay down the requirements on a certain product or services that and the committee is not very sure that this can be applicable. And then they first draft a technical specification that will not mandate the withdrawal of the national documents that are conflicting with it. So the countries are free to choose to use that technical specification or not. Another reason for developing that, those are, and mainly in our field, is about services. Services because for both for fire detection or for intrusion detection, there are very strong in place practices, national practices. And then there are national standards that are well in place, and the different countries do not want to change those national practices. And there are good historical reasons for that. And then there is still a need for having a European document that could be an example for the national documents, or that could be used for countries that do not have a national document. And then the technical specifications are developed in that case with a European view on the topic, but without mandating the withdrawal of the national documents. Next point, please. European harmonized standards. So it's a subpart of European standards, and those are documents that are prepared and developed on the basis of a standardization request from the European Commission. So this is really coming from the EU. And the EU is producing regulations and directives. So those are acts, those are defining the law. And they ask for technical documents supporting the essential requirements of those laws. And those are called harmonized standards because they are developed on the basis of a standardization request from the European Commission. The example there, the 14,000-1-4, is a document that is being prepared currently under the Cyber Resilience Act in order to test the cybersecurity of products that are placed on the market. Next point, please. A subpart of the European harmonized standards are those harmonized standards that are cited in the official journal, and this makes most of the harmonized standards. So those are standards which reference is listed in the OJEU, which is the official journal of the European Union, and those are documents that will provide presumption of conformity against a certain legislation. So the legislation, as I said, are providing essential requirements. The technical documents allow to check whether the essential requirements are fulfilled, are met by the product. And the presumption of conformity is the fact that the manufacturer, if he uses such a standard cited in the official journal, he is on the safe side from a legal perspective. Nobody can claim that he has chosen the bad standard for demonstrating compliance to a certain legislation. That's the concept of presumption of conformity. And there are several of them, and many of them, in the sector of Euralarm, and especially in the fire detection sector with the EN 54 standards, which most of the standards from that series are cited in the official journal, but also the EN 50130-4, which is for electromagnetic compatibility under the EMC directive. Next point, please. Then how are standards drafted and approved? So here it is a very simple description of the process, and I will certainly not go into the details because it can become very boring when we talk about processes. It's just the general idea that I want to depict here. First, there is a technical committee, which is named a TC. A technical committee is the group of all the countries who are participating to a certain topic. That could be security systems, that could be fire detection systems, that could be extinguishing systems. And they meet 1, 2, or 3 times a year, and they decide what are the new documents that need to be developed, and what are the documents that need to be revised. When they have decided on something that has to be done technically, then they assign the work to a working group, a WG. So the working group then start drafting the technical requirements. Could be a new document, could be a revision of an existing one. So they draft it. Then they submit the result of their work to the national committees, and the national committees prepare comments that could be technical comments, editorial comments, or general comments to the document, stating how they would like to see the text being changed, modified, in order to end up with a useful document for them. When the comments are prepared, those comments arrive back to the working group, who is working on the resolution of those comments. So they have to answer to each and every comment that has been raised by the national committees. And finally, they end up with a draft that is supposed to be the final document that will go for a formal vote. And the national committee will have the opportunity to vote yes or no, or abstention to the new document that has been prepared until, and if it is successful, if the vote is positive, then the standard becomes published. Next point, please. That means that most of the technical activities happens within the working groups. The working groups are made of experts. So those are people with the expertise in the domain. And one of those experts is nominated as the convener, is somehow the president of the group. The experts, they do not represent in the working group, they do not represent their country usually. Usually they represent themselves or their organization, so their employer that ask them to go to those working groups. The countries are represented in the technical committee, not in the working group. In the working group, it's really the expertise of the people who are there. The role of the convener is very important. I said president, but that's not the right word, because the convener has a very particular role. First, to convene the experts, so organizing the meetings, saying, okay, we will meet, I propose to meet at that date, at that place, or online. And having that made regularly in order to make the progress. The role, very important role, is to manage the working group to reach the consensus. I will come back to that concept. It's very important. It's a key concept in standardization. Manage to meet the deadlines, because the process needs to reach an end after a certain number of months or years. And then report to the technical committee of the progress of the working group. Now, the concept of consensus, next point, please. Concept of consensus is really key, and this is very important to understand that when you participate in standardization. It is defined very accurately as the general agreement characterized by the absence of sustained opposition. And this is really important. So when a document is being drafted, there could be conflict within the group against the experts, so they may not be all happy with the result. And the draft is submitted without asking to all the experts their agreement about the content. So the consensus is really the absence of sustained opposition. If someone is continuously saying, I don't agree with that sentence, I don't agree with that test, I don't agree with that requirement, then there is absence of consensus until they find an agreement within the experts, and there the role of the convener is really key, to find a way to express the requirements, the tests, the sentences, the wording, in order to stop any sustained opposition. And when the absence of sustained opposition is reached, we can say that the consensus is reached. So consensus need not imply unanimity. That's very different, and that's very important to understand. Next point, please. Now, with all of that, what are the added values at the end of standards? And so I list here added values for the manufacturer and service providers, for the end users, and for the EU institution or the national governments. So on the side of the manufacturers and service providers, so mainly from the industry, the European standards do define a common European playing field, and there is the ratio 1/34, meaning that with a European standard, potentially this European standard can replace 34 different standards from the different countries who are part of the European standardization system. Meaning that at the end, the products that are placed on the market are less country specific because they are all designed and complying with one standard that can be acceptable in 34 different sectors, in the different countries or regions. Also, the standards can provide guidance for designing products meeting performance expectations. And this is very important, certainly for the products in the Euralarm sectors, so for security and safety, but also to allow for new technologies to take up. Because when new technologies are available, there is some reticences, the market could feel that the products are not reliable. And so when new technologies are standardized, it helps accepting those new technologies. It has been the case within Euralarm when we worked on the remote access and remote services on alarm systems. We provided and we were strongly involved in developing a standards with the best practices for delivering remote services on alarm systems. Then claiming compliance or providing certificates of conformity. Of course, standards can allow for claiming compliance to a certain document, or also certification bodies can issue certificates that certify that the product is complying with a certain product, and this is also very important in the Euralarm sectors. Tool for conformity assessment, we have seen that with the harmonized standards cited in the official journal, and legal certainty when the standard is cited. On the side of the end user would like to have safe and secure products, so they do not want to be electrically shocked by a product. They want the product to be safe, also secure. Now with the lot of cybersecurity attacks that are happening, it's better to have products that are secure by default and by design when you purchase them. Having compatible products, we have talked about that. Having effective, reliable, robust, and resilient products and systems. So this is exactly what Euralarm promotes for the alarm products and systems. Effective and reliable services also, because there is only one chance to detect an hazardous situation. So the service that maintains the systems needs to be effective and reliable. And also trust on new technologies. So that's also for the end user. And then for the institutions and the governments, that allows for incorporating reference in public tenders So they can just refer by certain or several standards. Your products that we want to purchase need to comply with that, or your service needs to comply with that. That's an easy way to ask for the right performance. Also, European standard can serve as a basis for national standards. So European technical specifications can be used as a basis for national standards, and allowing the free circulation of goods and services within the single market. So that's clearly obvious. With those European standards, the goods can circulate and be sold all across the European Union. Next point, please. Then how and why to get involved? So for people in the industry, you can get involved in the working groups through your national mirror committee. So each country has their national mirror committees, and those are organized in the different countries, like the BEC or NBN for Belgium, NEN in the Netherlands, AFNOR in France, BSI in the UK, DIN and DKE for Germany, etc. So each country has their own national committees. The national committees nominate the experts to European working groups. And so this is the most common way of being involved. And the other way for being involved is through a partnership organization like Euralarm. As Euralarm is at European level, there is no national committee Euralarm can rely on or can liaise with. So Euralarm has a partnership contract with SEN and Senelec that allows Euralarm representative to be part of the technical work. Next point, please. Why to participate? First, to anticipate. When you are part of a new document or revised document that is being prepared, then you can anticipate yourself. You can anticipate with your company, your organization, and you can explain how the standard is evolving, and then you can adapt the products or the services in order to be compliant before the document is published. You can influence, of course, because if you want a particular standard to go in a certain direction for a product or a service or a system, then you have to be there in order to influence in the direction you would like to see. And then in order to achieve that, you provide argumentation. So it's all based on technical argumentation and consensus building within the group. And also you have the satisfaction of contributing, not only consuming and using standards, but also contributing to the all standards that are existing. Next point, please. Just to explain, finally, the next point, please. Yes, thank you. And finally, there is also a lot of satisfaction in participating in meeting all your, let's say, competitors or your peers in the other countries, in the other companies. And this builds, there is a lot of networking that is being achieved within the working groups and the technical committees. And also, of course, a lot of fun, because we are having a meeting in different regions of Europe, and we are circulating in the different countries. And so it's the opportunity to meet different cultures as well, and to enjoy sometimes a nice evening with the colleagues of the day of work. So that's what I wanted to explain to you about standardization, and I hope that I give some appetite for participating to this very interesting area. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Benoît. Very interesting. I wondered what you were eating during that meal over here, but that's probably for another discussion. Let's move on to the next presentation. That one will focus on standards at work and what they mean for the perimeter security business. Somebody who is involved in that field is Oscar Feijoo. He's chair of the Euralarm security section, and he will be your presenter and host for the next 10 till 15 minutes. Oscar, the floor is yours, and I will do the clicking if you are okay with that.
Thank you, Martin. So hello everyone. I'm Oscar Feijoo. I work for Verisure, and I'm based in Madrid. As Martin mentioned, I'm also chairing the security section in Euralarm. I also belong to some standardization technical groups where standards are produced, as Benoît has just explained to us, and also from the perspective of a manufacturer. I am someone that has been dealing with standards to get certifications for products and services for several years now. So after seeing how standards are developed, I'd like to focus on how they are actually used in real environments. And some of these real environments, especially important in those days, is the protection of critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is all the assets, systems, networks, and services that are essential for the functioning of society and the economy, and whose disruption or destruction would have a significant impact in our lives. So it's something like energy, water, transport, healthcare, communications, and financial services. The main idea that I would like you to take away from this presentation on standardization in critical infrastructures is that standardization is not theory, and that standardization is a practical tool to reduce ambiguity, to improve interoperability, and to ensure consistent protection levels across the different things that build the protection on critical infrastructure. And importantly, for your generation, for those of you who are early career professionals, it's key to help to shape how these systems are going to evolve across Europe in the coming years. So let's move to the next one, Martin, please. So the critical infrastructure environments combine physical, digital, and operational domains. And having these different domains involved in the protection of the infrastructure means that the operators need clear, reliable, and accessible information. When there are gaps in knowledge, they lead to inconsistent protection levels. So we have a very important thing that is the shared understanding across the different sectors to achieve that protection. I've had the experience when the first time I tried to explain what a standard really covers, and I realized that the biggest challenge at the beginning was not technical. It was about having a shared language. That's one of the key aspects that we need to take into account when we talk about standards. A clear and shared understanding of what we are discussing is very important. And in fact, all the standards usually have one of the first clauses with a set of definitions of all the topics the standards is dealing with later. For instance, in our sector, in the intrusion detection systems, when you talk about a tamper of the system, if you go to the definition, then you can read that a tamper is a deliberate interference with an intrusion and hold-up alarm system of part of it. So that's key. That's one of the main things that standardization is bringing to the discussion, and one of the foundations of the other steps that are taken later when delivering standards and when applying them to ensure the interoperability that I have mentioned here in this slide. Could we move to the next one? Why do we need standardization, and why do we need standardization specifically in the protection of critical infrastructures? The landscape today is that we have standards that are fragmented across different disciplines. We have the critical infrastructure operators navigating across different regulations in the European Union. The NIS2, that is the Network and Information Security Directive. We have the CER, that is the Critical Entities Resilience Directive, the CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act, and also on top of them, several national regulations. So the lack of unified guidance at the end leads to ambiguity and to uneven protection of the assets that we want to protect. So here, what standardization brings to this field is an improvement because it helps to clarify and to make systems interoperable. It allows also to have a predictable performance of the systems that are connected to protect the critical infrastructures. It also helps to get a regulatory alignment between the different parties, and it helps also to bring to the market quality in the products and services delivered, and also professionalism in the people involved in the manufacturing and in the provision of those services. So at the end, what Europe needs in this field in particular is a coherent and cross-domain framework. So standardization, as we are seeing, is not just a matter of technical work within a technical European technical committee, but it's also an strategic enabler of cooperation, of innovation, and also trust on the product and services that are certified. Let's move to the next one. So there are many challenges faced by the stakeholders in critical infrastructure. One of them is the rapid evolution of technologies and operational models. That is something that we do not only see in this field, but in many others. We are seeing that today innovation is coming to the market at a very fast speed. Sometimes in standardization, we are struggling to keep the progress on a standard to the innovation that comes to the market. That's probably one of the big challenges that we have in standardization, and one of the reasons why the contribution of young generations of experts that are very capable on these new technologies that are bringing the innovation to the market is really key, as Peter mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. Another challenge is also the different protection levels and practices across the member states that makes life really hard for manufacturers, considering the different requirements across different member states that could be there. One of the reasons for that difference being there is probably the lack of an European common standardization approach to the requirements needed for this sector. There are also varying competence across operators, integrators, and authorities. Standards are not only meant to be read by manufacturers who need to certify the product. Standards are also a very useful tool for the operators, the integrators, and the authorities. So when we are drafting standards, we always try to keep in mind that a standard is not just a list of requirements for the manufacturers, but also a very important document that gives a clear overview of the technology to other stakeholders that are part of the business. Another challenge is the limited availability of practical implementation-focused guidances. As Benoît mentioned before, when we talk about the standards, there are not only European standards, we could have also technical standards and guidances that help to guide the stakeholders of one business on how to implement the different solutions that are available in the market. So at the end of the day, what we feel is that there is a rising need for a cross-domain coordination between the different teams and systems, and that standardization plays a key role on that coordination, the achievement of that coordination. Next slide, please. So taking into account that we are moving in that landscape, this slide shows what is the role of our association of Euralarm in the standardization, and the standardization in particular of the critical infrastructure protection. Euralarm, first of all, is a neutral, trusted knowledge hub for fire safety and security technologies. Our members came from different roles within the stakeholders. We have manufacturers, we have national associations, we have certification bodies, also the members of our association. Euralarm serves as a way to make the connections between manufacturers, integrators, monitoring centers, and national associations. We provide structured information and education to the market. We publish guidance papers, position papers in our web page that aim for an education and information to the market, and also support the building of competence through these documents that I have mentioned, and also with sessions like the one that we are having today, and setting also specific expert groups on different topics of interest to the members of the association. So at the end of the day, Euralarm is acting as a bridge between the industry, the operators, and the standardization bodies, driving the transition from fragmented practices to harmonized European approaches. So next slide, please. So the priorities for the protection of critical infrastructure in the standardization world is, first of all, set a common language and core concepts. As I explained before, the foundation of all the work that comes later is to use a harmonized terminology and definitions across the sector to protect critical infrastructure. We are dealing with fire, we are dealing with security, with operations. So a shared understanding of the threats, risks, and objectives is key to serve to that protection. The second would be a cross-domain integration. Here, interoperability is key. We are connecting physical security, digital resilience, monitoring, and operation. So the interoperability between the different systems and different stakeholders is key. We need to give technology neutral performance requirements. So the requirements set in the standard are agnostic to the technology that is used, because that gives a space to innovation, and this allows standards to live longer. Drafting a standard that is very technology oriented in these days means that that standard will be probably outdated very soon. So setting the requirements being agnostic to technology is key in standardization today. Next one, please. We need to set competence and training frameworks to serve as the foundation for harmonized training and certification. There needs to be an alignment in governance and compliance, standardized documentation, maintenance, and incident management principles, supporting the regulations that I mentioned before, such as NIS2 and SReq, and also the national frameworks. And all of this in a harmonized European pathway, trying to identify where there is a risk of fragmentations, so that we can go to a single market with single requirements that helps both the manufacturers and operators of critical infrastructure protection easier, not having to look at too many different requirements from different countries. So in the roadmap, as Benoît mentioned before, in standardization, we are sometimes starting from guidance, then we go to technical specifications, and very often we end up with European norms, with standards that are adopted by all the member states as part of their standardization rules. So that was all from my side, Martin. Thank you.
Let me put on my microphone. That makes it easier to understand. Thank you, Oscar. Very helpful. It's time for some questions. If there are some questions, I certainly have one for Benoît and for you as well, Oscar. You mentioned, both of you, if I remember well, that standardization supports innovation. And I wondered how the balance is maintained between the speed that is needed for innovation and the often lengthy standardization process in Europe, and not only in Europe, I think in other parts of the world as well. Can you explain a little bit about that, or?
Maybe I can give a few words. So you are fully right to state that the process could be lengthy sometimes, and this is all bound to the consensus-based principle that I explained. So reaching a consensus can take a lot of time, and yes, there is the risk to see that when the document is finally published, it is a bit outdated. So this is really something that the groups, the working groups, and especially the conveners need to take into account, ensuring that they can reach a consensus and having a standard being published on time. That's a big issue. I agree, but nowadays, and especially with the European Commission today, we can say a lot against the rules from the European Commission for delivering harmonized standards, but they are putting a lot of pressure on delivering on time. And it's really interesting to see how the working groups, some working groups can work very intensively now and produce completely new standards. If I take the example of cybersecurity, producing standards for protecting products against cyber attacks, they are developed at a pace that is extremely fast.
Okay, that's good to hear. And how are European companies, are they sufficiently proactive in leading international standard setting activities? Oscar, I'm not sure if that's more for you or for you, Benoît.
I can take it. I think that there is a lack, in general, there is a lack of experts in the technical committees that are drafting the standards that will come to the market. And one of the reasons why standardization sometimes takes longer than expected is the lack of experts really committed to the development of new standards. Very often in some of the technical committees in Europe, we only have a handful of people really working in the standardization. I think that this standardization is key for not only for manufacturers, but manufacturers should be probably driving with more focus the standardization work in Europe. At the end of the day, having the proper standards in Europe is guaranteeing that the product and services delivered to the end user have the right level of quality, and is also preventing the situation that we could face in an industry where standards were not relevant, that is products coming from many countries across the world without having passed certain tests that ensure that they are good enough. So I think that probably not all the stakeholders in the industry are realizing that putting efforts in the standardization is really important to keep the healthy industry in Europe.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience, perhaps? You can either raise your hand or just start asking the question. If not, this was the second webinar that we organized for Euralarm Young Professionals. And I wondered if there's any feedback on the webinar as a young professional activity. Is it okay? Do you have any suggestions for other topics? Do you prefer other kinds of events? Any feedback on that? That would be very helpful for us to set the agenda for the upcoming period. You can share that now. That's easiest to speak up now, of course, but you can also reach me or any of us of the professional team via email, of course. So if you have any suggestions or tips or tricks, or let us know so that we can take that into account. And with that being said, I would like to thank today's presenters. Thank you, Benoît. Thank you, Oscar. Hope to see you again soon. For those who haven't registered for our annual event, please do so. And I'd like to invite the Euralarm Young Professionals as well to join us in Munich. It's a wonderful and a very precious experience, I think, and we would love to have you there as well. And with that, I would thank you for joining, and I hope to see you soon, either in a webinar or online or in person in Munich. Peter, you want to share the final thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Martin. I would like to thank Benoît and Carlos for presenting today. a very interesting deep dive into the standardization process in Europe and protection of critical infrastructures and the implication that this has into the regulatory framework. Of course, allow me to thank those that have attended the webinar today. I also want to echo what Martin has just said. We really put a lot of effort in producing content for young professionals. But of course, we also value feedback. So please, if you have any comments, any suggestion for us to improve or change or develop, our actions, our activities, the content that we produce in connection with the Young Professional Initiative, please feel free to reach out to us. Any feedback is welcome, and any feedback will be reviewed and acted on. And with that, once again, thank you very much to everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.